All right, let's get right into it. We're going beyond the ones and zeros today to talk about something huge, the ethics of artificial intelligence. It's a world that's packed with incredible promise, for sure, but also some really profound challenges.
Let's start with the big idea that's driving so much of this. As Alison Powell from the LSC points out, there's this powerful story we tell ourselves, that using tech to run things is just better, it's faster, it's cheaper, and honestly, it's a really persuasive argument.
But here it is. This is the question that just stops you in your tracks. If we're going to let AI make decisions that affect our lives, everything from who gets a job to who gets parole, then faster and cheaper just isn't going to cut it. It has to be fair. And that right there is where things get really, really complicated.
Okay, so let's tackle the first ripple in the pond, the most immediate problem, bias. There's this common myth that a machine, because it's just pure logic, has to be objective. But as you're about to see, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Here's the fundamental disconnect. We expect the machine to be impartial, right? But the reality is that AI systems learn from data that we humans created. They learn from our history, from our language, from every decision we've ever made. And that includes all of our flaws. So our societal biases get baked right into the data, and that creates algorithmic bias. The key thing to get here is that an AI doesn't just learn about the world, it learns our biases about the world.
And this slide right here makes the problem crystal clear. This isn't theoretical. A study of voice recognition from giants like Amazon, Apple, and Google found a pretty shocking gap. Just look at these numbers. For white speakers, the error rate was about 19%, but for black speakers, it jumped to 35%. That is a massive difference in how well a basic everyday technology works for different groups of people.
And this has huge real-world consequences. Amazon, for instance, had to completely scrap an AI tool they were building for recruiting. Why? Well, it turns out the AI was penalizing any resume that had the word women's in it, like captain of the women's chess club, because it was trained on a decade of resumes that were mostly from men. The system basically taught itself that men were the better candidates.
And the stakes get so much higher when you look at the justice system. An algorithm called Compass, which is used to predict the likelihood of someone reoffending, was found to be nearly twice as likely to falsely flag black defendants as high risk compared to white defendants. These aren't just numbers on a chart. These are judgments that can literally alter the course of a person's life.
So if we know that AI can be biased and we know it can cause real harm, that leads us to the next massive question: accountability. When an AI messes up, who's actually in charge? Who's responsible? Let's take the classic example, which is tragically a very real one: the self-driving car. Back in 2018, a self-driving Uber hit and killed a pedestrian named Elaine Herzberg. The car's system just completely failed to identify her correctly. It's a terrible event that forces us to ask an incredibly difficult question.
So who's at fault? Is it the safety driver who was in the car but wasn't actually driving? Is it Uber, the company that built the tech? What about the programmers who wrote all that code? Or maybe it's the government regulators who said it was okay to put these cars on the road in the first place. The truth is, our legal system just wasn't designed for this kind of problem. And this whole situation points to something called the black box problem. You see, with a lot of modern AI, the decision-making process is so ridiculously complex that we can see the data that goes in and we can see the decision that comes out, but we can't fully trace the logic in between. It's a complete mystery. So if even the people who made the AI can't tell you exactly why it did what it did, how on earth are we supposed to assign blame?
Now let's pull the camera back even further to a much bigger, more philosophical question. As AI starts taking on more and more complex jobs, it actually starts to challenge our own sense of value and our own dignity. What happens to us when machines start making moral decisions for us?
This is not a new fear. An AI pioneer named Joseph Weizenbaum was warning about this way back in the 1970s. He argued that some jobs, being a therapist, a judge, a nurse, they require real, authentic empathy. And to put a machine in those roles, he said, is to cheapen what it means to be human.
But there's a really powerful counter-argument here. The author Pamela McCorduck, speaking for many women and minorities, basically said, you know what? I'd rather take my chances with a truly impartial computer than a human judge or a police officer who might be biased against me. It's this incredible tension between the ideal of human connection and the reality of human prejudice.
And this whole line of thinking, it eventually leads us into a total philosophical minefield. As these AI systems get more and more sophisticated, a really strange question starts to pop up. Should they have some kind of moral status? or even legal rights. I mean, what does it even mean to talk about robot rights?
Now, the debate is super complex, but you can kind of boil it down to a few main ideas. First, you've got the rights-based approach. This asks if we have actual moral duties to these machines, kind of like how we talk about animal rights. Then there's a more practical, functional approach. This sees legal personhood as just a useful tool, like we do with corporations. So an AI could, say, legally sign a contract. And finally, you have relational ethics, which flips the whole thing on its head. It says the important part isn't what the robot is thinking, but how we treat it, as a partner or a tool.
So, with all of these thorny ethical dilemmas, bias, accountability, the very idea of robot rights, the world is now, well, scrambling to figure out what to do. How do we actually navigate this future we're building?
One of the biggest answers so far is the European Union's AI Act. It's a huge piece of regulation, and it takes this really interesting risk-based approach. The stuff they see as an unacceptable risk, like government social scoring systems, are just banned, flat out. Then you have high-risk systems, like in medical devices, which have to meet really strict rules. Limited-risk things, like chatbots, just have to tell you they're an AI. And for everything else that's minimal risk, like an AI in a video game, it's pretty much business as usual.
And what the EU is doing is part of a much bigger, global conversation. You've got groups like the UN trying to create international standards. The tech giants themselves are forming alliances to try and set their own best practices. And there's this growing demand from the public for more transparency, for what's called explainable AI, and for clear documentation of what data these systems are even trained.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe most important thought. The ethics of AI isn't really about the code. It's about us. Every piece of data we create, every choice we make that gets recorded, it all becomes part of the digital DNA for these new forms of intelligence. So the real question isn't what the machines are going to do in the future. It's what are we, right now, teaching them about what it means to be human.